Hi there. After a little break, I thought it might be a cool idea to give you an overview of the Prophet Rev2. I have been honored to be on the sound designers team and I received a prototype, so I thought I might just use the occasion to show you what it's all about. And this overview is basically divided into three parts. In the first part, I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences between the Rev2 and the Prophet 08. This is obviously related to. In the second part, I'm going to walk you through the sections and show you how they work. And in the end, I'm going to demonstrate a couple of sounds that I've programmed in order to show you the sonic capabilities. And in case I can still remember what I programmed, I will make a comment here and there. All right, here we go. We're going to start off our comparison of the Prophet Rev2 and its predecessor, the Prophet 08, by taking a look at the backsides of both. On both instruments, you'll find a stereo main output as well as a second stereo output for layer B in case you'd like to control each layer independently of the other when it comes to mixing, panning and recording. If output B is used, the main output will only output the audio signal of layer A, not the mixed one anymore. Next, there's a headphone output. You'll also get the MIDI trio in, out and through, as well as a pedal CV input for expression pedals and a sustain pedal input. In addition to that, the Prophet 08 also had an additional MIDI port called Polychain Out, in case you wanted to increase polyphony by adding a Prophet 08 module or a Tetra, for example. This port has been dropped on the Rev2, partially I guess, because up to 16 voices seem to be sufficient enough for poly duties. Instead, the Rev2 comes along with a built-in power supply that operates over a range of 100 to 240 volts and comes with a standard connector for grounded IEC power cord, which in turn the Prophet 08 was lacking. Furthermore, the Rev2 provides a USB connection for bidirectional MIDI communication with a computer and a sequencer input that, if connected to a foot pedal, allows for starting and stopping the sequencer or arpeggiator. In addition to that, you can also send audio signals through this input in order to further control the sequencer or arpeggiator or to gate the filter and amplifier envelopes while notes are being held. The differences between both instruments are a bit more extensive on the front panel, which is why I won't go through all the available parameters, but just the ones that have been added or replaced. The only controls you'll find on the Prophet 08 that don't appear this way on the Rev2 are the Program button, which has simply been replaced by the Program knob on the Rev2, and the VCA level knob in the VCA section, a parameter that was moved to the Miscellaneous Parameters menu on the Rev2. In turn, the Rev2 adds front panel controls for the activation of glide, as well as for the according rate and time settings, and a hold button. The LFO section was redesigned in a what you see is what you get manner, particularly with regard to the different shapes. And also a dedicated clock sync button was added. The oscillator section also features a redesigned wave shape selection area and two shape mod knobs for each oscillator. In addition, there's a sub-oscillator level control and a slot parameter knob. The slot parameter was already available on the Prophet 08, albeit it only had a very subtle impact, which is different now. The next big change comes with the modulation section that offers an improved way of assigning mod sources and destinations. Also new is the tap tempo button and the expanded sequencer functionality. While the Prophet 08 contained only one type of sequencer, a gated sequencer, the Rev2 provides two types of sequencers, the gated sequencer and a poly sequencer. Next on, the display was changed to a square OLED display. I'll be perfectly honest and admit that when I first unpacked the Rev2, I was surprised by how small it actually is. but at the same time I have to point out that its size never bothered me while I was designing sounds. It contains all the information you need and is far from being insufficient in daily use. And it should also be mentioned that the Rev2 is not a menu-driven synth anyway. In other words, the display comes in just the right size for what you are going to need it for. And finally, there's the added effects section that, along with particularly the shape mode functionality, provides you with sound shaping tools that haven't been available on the Prophet 08 at all. Now, let's take a closer look at the single functions of the Rev2. Okay, we start on the left side, where you find the pitch bend wheel, the mod wheel, both of which are actually the same ones as you can find on the Prophet 12, the Pro 2, the Prophet 6 and the OB6. They're just not illuminated below. And above that you find the master volume knob and a couple of other parameters we talk about later. And down here you find the transpose buttons, which go up and down 2 octaves and also come in handy for initiating a basic patch. You just press down 2 and hold them, and then you press the hold button, and then you get to the basic program, which is basically a 1 oscillator sawtooth patch. Alright, now let's move on to the oscillator section. So first of all, I'd like to demonstrate the range by pressing the lowest key and starting with C0. So this is still LFO territory. Then we slowly turn it up. To C10. So that's for the dogs out there. So turn this all the way down to C2 again, which is the default. Next we have a fine-tune button. It goes up and down 50 cent, followed by the shape button. Now this is the new thing, well, not the different wave shapes, but what it's tied to next, the shape mod. But first of all, we have a sawtooth, saw and triangle, triangle, and a square wave. Well, this is actually a little bit more nasal than a square should be, which is because the shape mode parameter is set to 0%, which is the default. At 50% we get a square wave. Okay, now we already dug into this new parameter. Now shape mode applied to square waves or pulse waves is not so special, but what they did on here is letting you apply the shape mode to sawtooth, saw and triangle, and the triangle waves. So let's have a listen. Turn it all the way back down to 0. 0% causes the default setting for sawtooth, saw and triangle, and triangle. And let's hear what it sounds like if we apply the shape mode to the sawtooth wave. Alright, next we do the same with saw and triangle. And let's do the same with the triangle. And finally, the more traditional version applied to the square wave. Alright, and by the way, you can deactivate the oscillator, or the single oscillators, by just pressing the shape button again until none of these lights are lit anymore, and then there is no sound. And the next parameter is the sub-octave. A sub-octave is the sub-oscillator tied to oscillator 1, which in this, well, I should turn it on first, which is a square wave. So this is good to thicken your bases, and due to it being a square wave, it adds some extra harmonic content, unlike a triangle or sawtooth wave. And the next parameter is the noise, which is basically white noise. Alright, we have the same parameters, or almost the same parameters down here for oscillator 2. So the oscillator frequency, fine tune, shape selection, shape mod, and oscillator 2 is deactivated now, as is oscillator 1, and you would generally set the level of both oscillators with the oscillator mix button. So all the way to the left, it's only oscillator 1, which happens to be a sawtooth. All the way to the right, it's oscillator 2, which happens to be a square wave. And in the middle you have a mix of both. And the last parameter in the oscillator section is the oscillator slop, which basically emulates the oscillator's drift. So if we do that with our two oscillators, let's maybe take a setting you would rather choose with tuning both oscillators ever so slightly. So this is just plus and minus 2 cents to thicken it up a bit. So there is no oscillator slop engaged here. Let's turn this up slowly while holding a chord. So yeah, you can get pretty messy here. Maybe you would, for the daily purpose, you would maybe stick to a setting around 20, 24 or something. That's already This is just 1/4. All right. We forgot about one more traditional parameter, and this is the sync button. So for your traditional sync sounds, it syncs oscillator 1's frequency to that of oscillator 2. And of course you can modulate all that with the modulation section, or the LFOs, which we talk about in a little bit. Okay, let's disengage the sync again and go back to the section over here, which is related to how the oscillators act. So what we have here is a rate time button to this is connected to the glide effect. So if you turn on glide, this is now set to 0. If you turn it up, so this glide button over here controls the glide rate for both oscillators at the same time. So there is an option in the miscellaneous parameters section where you can adjust the glide values independently of each other for both oscillators. But this one is global, so to speak, for both oscillators at the same time. Okay, whenever you activate the glide button over here, or key, it will jump to the recording menu and provides you with a couple of options. The first option is fixed rate, which is the traditional glide effect or portamento effect. Then there's fixed rate A, which basically does the same as fixed rate, but only if you play legato. Then you have fixed time. So no matter how far or apart the keys are you play, or how close they are, the glide effect will always take the same time, and you can control that again with the rate and time button over there. And then you have fixed time A, which is basically the equivalent to fixed rate A, which means that it only engages if you play legato. Alright, then there's unison. Now the unison mode now is it's just one oscillator, but in the menu we can adjust how many voices we would like to use in unison. So this is just one voice, 2 voices, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it will let you select up to 16. Well, I have to turn this down a little bit. And if you now engage the oscillator slot parameter, you can easily get your favorite super saw. Or go beyond. So there's all the ingredients for trance heaven or whatever. All right. The next option for unison is chord. So in order to activate or to assign a chord, you just, well, hold down a chord and press unison. So it's that simple. And then we just have a hold button, which mostly comes in handy for, I guess, arpeggios, which we talk about later. So let's talk about the filter. The low pass filter you find on here is the classic Curtis low pass filter, and it works in two modes: a 4-pole mode with the light activated and 2-pole mode with the light down here deactivated. Now let's listen to it. Turn the resonance down. Resonance at 25%. Resonance at 50. $75. And full on. And let's try that in 2-pole mode. Resonance at 25. This is the 2-pole the 2-pole mode is not self-resonant. %. $75. And full on. So the 2-pole mode is not self-resonant, but it's maybe your preferred filter for pads. So some people say that this has an almost Oberheim-y touch. Not the SEM filter, but the one of the later Oberheims, like the OBXA, which used Curtis filters. Alright, turn the 4-pole back on. Next we have the envelope amount. Let's turn the cutoff down. What we have as an envelope down here is a DA/DSR envelope. So we have a delay, which at its maximum setting takes quite a bit of time. Let's deactivate that. So tech is quite snappy. Let's turn up the resonance. Some release. Switch over to 2-pole. So here you hear the difference quite emphasized. So the 2-pole might actually be your favorite choice for synth brass sounds. Okay, next on we have an envelope knob. So that's you open the filter depending on how hard you hit the keys. We have a key amount knob. That basically controls how the filter opens in conjunction with the key number. Or not in conjunction, but depending on the key number. So at its full amount, you have a 1-to-1 ratio. Next on we have the audio mode knob. So what this does is it controls the intensity with which the frequency of oscillator 1 modulates the cutoff frequency. So you can think of it as a sort of FM parameter, and this is how it sounds. It's very subtle in 2-pole mode, more emphasized in 4-pole, especially if you add resonance. So at this extreme setting, you can already guess that this is really good for FM sounds, for sort of bell-like sounds, which we might get to later when I show some audio examples. So that's pretty much the filter section. Now on with the amp section. The amplifier has the same envelope generator as the low-pass filter, so it's a DADSR envelope. The first parameter we have here though is the pan spread. What it does is that it arranges the single voices in the stereo spectrum. So if I would play single notes now, you can hear them jump from left to right. This can of course be done more subtly. brings up the sound in the stereo image. Next we have the envelope amount, velocity, to let you control the envelope amount with however hard you hit the key. However, for that to be effective, you have to turn down the envelope amount. And well, the next parameters are just the envelope generator. So just as the filter envelope, this can get very snappy. Or very slow. Very lush pads. Now let's talk about the low frequency oscillators. You have 4 LFOs which you can activate with the buttons over here, and they have a shape button too, so you can choose between triangle, sawtooth, reverse saw, square, and random, also known as sample and hold. You have a frequency knob and clock sync, which syncs it or gives you clock divide values between 32 steps up to 1/16th step. You have key sync, which means that the LFO will be re-triggered every time you press a key. And you have a destination knob, which lets you select quite a few number of parameters. Basically all you can see here and more, and an amount knob. So let's just apply LFO 1 to oscillator 1 and 2 frequency. So that's the lowest frequency setting. It's quite slow. Might be actually better applied to subtle shape mode. It goes all the way to audio range. So pretty wide range for the LFOs, and yeah, you have 4 of those, and let's maybe choose another example here. Apply them to the oscillator shapes. Maybe use two waveforms that are not so usual to be modulated with regard to their shape. So sawtooth and triangle. So shape mode applied to unusual waves to thicken up the sound. And well, but 4 LFOs is not all you have. You have this tiny modulation section up here, which really gives the wrong impression, because I mean you have basically 2 knobs here, one for selecting additional modulation slots, an amount knob, a source, and a destination knob, and this comes in very handy. But first of all, let's put out that in addition to these 4 LFOs and a third envelope, we have 8 modulation slots and 5 fixed slots, one for mod wheel, pressure or velocity. I'm sorry, pressure would be aftertouch. Breath controller, velocity, and a MIDI foot control, so expression pedal. So effectively you have 13 modulation slots per layer, which is quite impressive. And let's talk about these, or the advantage of these keys over here. So if you hold down the source button and well, let's do something simple here, which is also quite neat. If you press down source and hit a key, the first option that is shown to you is velocity. If you hit it twice, the next option that is shown to you is pressure or aftertouch. If you hit it 3 times, the next option would be note number. So this is already a really cool shortcut here. So let's just take pressure and assign it to, I don't know, noise level, and turn the amount up all the way. So within a couple of seconds you have this set up thanks to the shortcuts, and you can do that for all modulation slots. So that's a pretty quick and effective way to assign modulations. Alright, the next thing we have up here is an auxiliary envelope, which is an extra envelope that you can assign to any modulation source destination. And you just select the destination with the knob right here. So it can be oscillator 1 frequency, oscillator 2 frequency, all frequency, oscillator mix, noise, sub, oscillator, oscillator 1 shape, oscillator 2 shape, all oscillator shapes, cutoff, resonance, audio mod, VCA, pan, LFO frequencies, and so on and so forth. So apart from the destination, you have envelope amount, velocity, sensitivity, delay, attack, decay, sustain, release. Let's assign this to LFO frequency, and I have the choose Rev2 to modulate the filter cutoff with a triangle wave. And now I choose as a destination Rev2 frequency. I have the amount full on. Turn back the amount. I'm just working with attack and decay here. So it's set up that the LFO frequency accelerates and decelerates right at the start. You can also hear that the LFO works per voice. Let's move over to the next section, which is the clock section, which basically gives you easy access to the clock settings, either applied to the arpeggiator or the sequencer. The first knob is BPM, and you can, I'm not sure if you can see it clearly enough in the video, but in the upper right corner of the display you have the BPM number displayed, which can be set individually for each layer. And then knob over here is a clock divide knob, so it lets you set every relative value from half note to 64 triplets, so that's quite a bit. And you have a tap tempo button for instant tempo settings. The next section, the very small one up here, is the ARP section. So the arpeggiator only basically consists of two buttons on here. One is for mode, the other one on and off. So it just activates the arpeggiator. If you press mode, the menu will take you directly to the ARP mode. The first one is up, then you have down, up and down, random, and assign, which place the notes in the order you actually press them. You can also adjust the arpeggiator range, 1 octave, 2 octaves, 3 octaves. You can also have the single notes repeat up to 3 times. So this is 0, 1, 2, and 3. And you can also relatch the ARP. Turn that on and off. And those are the arpeggiator options. Okay, the next section is the sequencer section, and that is a little bit more complicated than the ARP section. So I just start with, you have basically two sequencer options. One is called poly, the other one is gated. Let's start with the gated one. It's the one that could also be found on the Prophet 08. The difference on here is, though, that on the Prophet 08 you had 2 rows of 8 knobs each that would represent the control knobs for each of the 16 steps. You don't have that on here, so there's no second function for the knobs. So the gated sequencer option is pretty much menu driven, and so you have the knob track here, which lets you select a destination for each sequence. So each sequence of the gated sequencer is 16 steps long, or can be up to 16 steps long, and there are 4 sequences or 4 tracks. This sequencer is what it does is that it represents sort of the old school sequencer used on modulars, which basically means that it's a sequencer used as a modulation source. So you can choose any of the available destinations. Let's just do something really simple here. Maybe modulate the 2 oscillator frequencies. Now, if you move the parameter knob over here, you can scroll through all the 16 available steps per sequencer track. To keep it very quick here, I just assign random values to each step. So this might not sound very musical, but gives you an impression. So I just choose 12 steps now. This is what happens now. So this is just one of the 4 tracks, modulating both oscillators' frequency. And you can apply that sort of modulation to any parameter. Now, what else you can do is you have the mode button, and this allows you different sequencer modes. The first one is normal, which is you press a key and it triggers the sequence. Then we have no reset. So the key doesn't retrigger. We have no gate. No gate and no reset. Key step. Basically, each key moves the sequence forward 1 step, and that's it. The poly mode of the sequencer is opposed to the gated sequencer, is the sequencer mode you would rather associate with a MIDI sequencer. So it actually lets you record notes. Now, the poly sequencer works pretty much like a tape recorder. So you press the record button and play. And hit the play button to have it play back. Well, you might ask yourself, but how about rests and ties? Well, that's pretty easy. So you would hit the record button, play a chord, press destination to tie that chord, maybe for 4 steps, and you don't have to press the chord or hold it again, and then press a different chord. Press destination twice, and we add a tie here, which we do with the mode rest, sorry, with the mode button, and then so that's pretty much how you do it. It's pretty easy and straightforward. So destination is for tie, mode for rests. So the next section I'd like to talk about is the effect section. It has an on-off button to activate and deactivate the effect. A select button with which you select the effect types. A mix knob, which is set to roughly 50% right now, and 2 parameter knobs which control FX parameters dependent on the type of effect you're using. All right, first setting is off. The first effect is a mono delay, which sounds like this. Parameter 1 controls the delay time, parameter 2 the delay feedback. Next one is a digital stereo delay. That is considerably wider. The parameters control the same settings again, delay time and delay feedback. Next one is a bucket per gate delay with a characteristic effect noticeable when you turn the time parameter. Next one is a chorus. It's a little bit extreme. Parameter 1 controls the rate. Parameter 2 the depth, which is about halfway set. So that thickens up the sound significantly. The next effect is a phaser high. High for high resonance response. Just like with the chorus, the first parameter controls the rate, second one the depth. The next one is a phaser low. Next one, phaser MST, that is referring to Maestro, and the Maestro phaser was the phaser that Tom Oberheim developed. It's considerably more subtle. It's the same one you find, or that was developed for the OB6. Next one is the flanger 1. Flanger parameter 2, more subtle. Then we have a reverb. Parameter 1 controls the reverb time. And parameter 2 the reverb tone. Let's turn up the mix a bit. Next one is a ring mod. Not quite the effect you would choose for a sound like this, but good for clangy sounds or FM type sounds. The first parameter controls the ring mod tune. The second turns the key tracking on or off. Then we have a distortion. Parameter 2 controls the distortion tone. Parameter 1 the distortion gain. And the last effect is an high-pass filter. Parameter 1 controls the cutoff frequency. And parameter 2 controls the resonance, now turned all the way up. And that's it. That's the effect section. Okay, next section and final section I want to talk about is everything that's close to the display. And you have a parameter and a value knob here. The parameter knob also functions in conjunction with the sequencer, as we've already seen. The value knob works with every parameter on the synth. And there's a miscellaneous parameters button. Here you can set the program volume if you want to adjust all your presets so they have roughly the same volume. The parameter knob helps you navigating through this menu. You have a oscillator 1 note reset and oscillator 2 note reset. So if you don't want them to be free running, for example for pronounced bass lines where you always need the same kind of attack. Oscillator 1 and 2 key on, key off, so you can use both oscillators frequencies independently of the keyboard and just have them running at a set frequency. And the next one is pan mode. The first option is alternate, which is the one we've used so far. You have also the option to choose fixed. For that you better set the pan spread parameter to 0. It will come in handy if you want to use the pan parameter as a modulation destination. So for example, if you want to assign the mod wheel to pan the sound from left to right, that's a use case you would use this setting for. Next parameter is glide mode. We already covered that. Then we have oscillator 1 and 2 glide, adjustable individually. The pitch bend range, which can be set from 0 to 12. Then we have the unison mode. We already covered that as well. Unison detune, that is actually a detune parameter in addition to what we did in the beginning with oscillator slop. So this is, if I would turn unison on, well, I need to first, I choose 16 voices. This is a unison detune set to the fullest. This is a little bit more subtle for your casual super wave. So if you want to do a swarmatron kind of sound, this is a good parameter to use. Then you have a key mode or key mode priorities. Low key, I mean this is all for unison mode. You have low key priority, high key priority, last key priority, low key priority with reset, high key priority with reset, and last key priority with reset. You also have envelope repeat option, so that way you can loop the auxiliary envelope. Like this. VCA level can, if you turn it up, you can just use it for drones. And split point. And last but not least, there's the miscellaneous parameters button. If you hold this down and turn, for example, the cutoff knob, it will always show you the value at which the recording parameter you turn is at without changing it. So that's another useful tool for careful editing. Well, we have two knobs over here for program change and bank change. There are 4 user banks and 4 banks that can't be overwritten, so-called factory banks. And over here we have 6 additional buttons. The first one is global. It will got you access to master course tuning, master fine tuning. You can set up the MIDI channel over here, set the MIDI clock mode, so you can choose between master, slave, slave through, or just turn it off. MIDI clock cable, you can select between USB, MIDI DIN, MIDI parameter send, you can choose between CCs and NRPNs, same for MIDI parameter receive. You can set the MIDI control on and off, MIDI program enable, MIDI sys cable settings, again USB or MIDI DIN, MIDI out select, again MIDI DIN or USB. You can turn on and off the multi-mode, can turn on and off the local control. You can also set velocity curves. You can choose between 4, same for pressure curves or aftertouch curves. Then you can set whether you want to use the Rev2 in mono or stereo. Stereo, of course, is preferred. You can adjust the pot modes, jump, pass-through or relative. And you also have access to alternative tunings, and you can activate or deactivate the screensaver. Screensaver in this case just means that after a couple of minutes of no interaction with the instrument, the screen just goes blank, so that the OLED display lives a little bit longer. You can have the sequencer triggered by a pedal. The pedal CV input on the back is used for that, and here you can choose a setting, a normal trigger gate. You can set the pedal polarity. You can set whether you want to control the ARP with the sustain pedal, and you can also calibrate the wheels, launch the basic program, calibrate oscillators and filters, reset the global settings, dump program, that is as SysX files, banks, dump banks, or dump all banks, and that's it. So those are all the global menu options. Then you have a right button, which only works if I exit global. So here you can basically choose a name, select a program here, and the bank for the destination. Here you can jump between the characters, and here you can, with the value knob, you can select the letters. Next one is compare. That lets you compare the program with the last version. So in the second row we have a split AB button. If you hold that down and press a key, you can set a split point between layer A and B. So what this means is that layer B will now start at E3. Layer B is of course right now unspectacular because it is the basic program. Next we have the stack A and B button. So this is both layers combined. Again, layer B is quite unspectacular right now. And you have the layer B button to edit layer B. If you have stack A and B activated and hold down the edit layer B button until it is blinking, every parameter change you will perform will affect both layers at the same time. So for example, if you turn the cutoff knob, the cutoff frequency will change to the same degree on both layers. Now what I also found handy is if you have two layers that should pretty much carry the same name, or just variant A and B added to the actual name, you can, if you have both layers activated, you can also press down the layer B button until it blinks, and if you want to write something, you can change the name of both layers simultaneously. So this also makes life much easier. Another nifty thing over here is if you press both split AB and stack AB buttons at the same time, the right button starts blinking. And now you can copy the sound of layer A to layer B, or copy the sound from layer B to layer A, or swap the sounds from layer A and B. You can also copy the sequence of layer A to B, or from B to A, or just swap the sequence between both layers. So this comes in pretty handy. Alright, after this walkthrough, I will now proceed to give you a couple of sonic examples, just to show you a little bit more about the Prophet Rev2 in action. Okay, here is a sequencer patch. Next we have a patch that utilizes the high pass effect. The next patch demonstrates a couple of clangy and more percussive sounds. It's also a sequence. That, amongst other things, makes use of the audio mod and gives you a taste for what FME kind of things you can do. Next patch demonstrates that you can use the Rev2 for beats as well, and in this case we have the sequence again, but you can always play along with the sequence. this is just to show that you don't have to use the Rev2 for just creating classic analog sounds, but can also do something quite different. This one's called Underwater and makes particular use of the low pass filter. So the next patch is another sequence, very ambient-like, just a couple of slowly played back notes, and the mod wheel is controlling a random LFO that controls the VCA release parameter, or the VCA envelope generator's release parameter. Well, this does a couple of things. I mean, this is obviously the amplifier modulated by a square LFO, but I also try to get into car plus strong territory by modulating very, very short delay times. Is responsible for this sort of zipper effect. well, this is more sort of FX type patch, but it shows you that you can do quite different things with the Prophet Rev2. And here we have a rather classic analog sound, which also makes use of the chorus. Something with a little bit of reverb. I would like to leave you with an ambient patch, and it's based on 2 layers that both play back a sequence at different tempo settings. So layer A plays back the sequence at 90 BPM, while layer B is playing back the sequence at 89 BPM. So it's only a tiny little difference, but over time new permutations arise, and both sequences are not quite identical and the mod will controls all sorts of things, amongst which is the intensity of audio mod, and this is how it goes. Alright, that was the overview of the Prophet Rev2. Although this isn't a review, I should maybe add a couple of words in the end. Well, all in all, I have to say this is quite a beast with its up to 16 voices and the modulation capabilities. I mean, 13 modulation slots plus 4 LFOs per layer, all of which are assignable to one of the 53 modulation destinations. This synth should really keep you busy for quite a while. And it also feels good. I mean, it's built really well, and the Fatah keyboard is a really welcome update towards the Prophet 08. Talking of which, I didn't only design sounds for the Prophet Rev2, which you get for free if you buy the instrument. I also did a much larger sound set for the Prophet 08, and I will put a link to that down below. And in case you like it, but you own a Rev2, you can still get it, because Dave Smith Instruments make sure that all the sounds that have been originally designed for or on the Prophet 08 are going to be 100% compatible with the Rev2, so there's not going to be any problem. I should also mention for our German viewers that I am going to translate the Prophet Rev2 manual, so there is going to be a Deutsches Handbuch very soon. Alright, that's about it. If you like this overview, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe below. You take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.